Happy to be here with my very special guest this week, the writer, director, a little bit of everything for the feature film Zombeez, Miss Elesia Marie. Elesia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. As we're recording this, it's December 7th, so we're 10 days away from the premiere of Zombies. So are you feeling the excitement?
I'm feeling excitement and scared to death, but I'm really excited for everybody to finally see the movie. So yeah,
Yeah, and and I feel like, because you guys shot that, what, 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago?
yeah, we finished principal photography June 4th of 2021. So
Okay.
yep.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into the details of the premiere a little bit later on because that's a whole separate thing. And honestly, one of
Yes.
like as someone who's done it, it's really exciting to see something that you've worked so hard on, and I know how hard you've worked on making this thing a reality. And I think your persistence has been really inspiring, to be honest, because a lot of people would they'd probably give up and just be like, you know what, this is more work than I thought it was going to be, or it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But, and credit to you, because if anybody doesn't follow the Zombies social media pages, you're posting stuff all the time. Like, you're keeping the name out there. So was that part of your strategy because you knew that post production was going to take a little longer than anticipated?
No, I had no idea it was going to take this long. I when I first started post production, I was like, "Oh, we'll be done in a couple of months. We'll have the premiere in August." Silly girl, it's like 2.5 years later. There's no way I would have thought it was going to take this long. Like I thought year tops maybe, and it was just one thing after another, and so it was just like you know you got to keep posting to let people know you're not dead in the water, even though I had people telling me, oh, well, it's never going to happen because you're a year and a half in, this, that, and the other. And, I got some kind of like disheartening comments from people, but it was just like, no, I'm not finished. And so I just kept posting and posting, hoping to keep people, engaged because I was like, I have to finish this movie. So, you know,
Yeah,
we did.
no, absolutely. Yeah. So let's rewind back to the very beginning. What was it that made you want to become a filmmaker in the first place?
I didn't. It was kind of like a necessity type thing. I wrote the script and I figured that somebody else would make it or, produce it and do all the things. I would still act and do that. But I was trying to find a director and stuff because Kevin Almo was like, don't write, direct, act, and executive produce your own movie. You're going to drive yourself crazy. And I was like, of course I'm not, you know. And it just ended up that I had to do all those things because of our budget. So it definitely wasn't my life plan to be a filmmaker, but I just kind of fell into it. And then I decided I really like this thing. And so I've written five more scripts since then, waiting for other people to finish their parts of the project. So now it's like, all right, I'm here and we're gonna do this. We're gonna see how many we can make and do the thing. So
Credit to you, because you mentioned five scripts. I've got several ideas, but have kind of started two of them.
mhm.
So to say that you have five scripts done is is pretty impressive. Is writing one of your favorite aspects of the filmmaking process?
I will say yes. If I could only pick two of the things to do, it would be the writing and the acting. Like the directing, if I had to, I could do it. The producing, absolutely not. Executive producing, I'll say, because we did have Nick Smith, who was our producer and who did all the things that I had no idea what I was doing. So thank God for him. But if I could only pick the two things, it would be writing and acting, and someone else can do all the hard stuff.
Yeah, as I'm sure you've learned, the producer job can be a bit thankless in a way, but it's one of the most important parts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I honestly don't think I would have actually started this without Nick because he was the one who looked at the script and said, let's do it. And I'm like, great, I have $5,000. What are we going to fundraise for 3 years and then film it? And he's like, no, we'll do it now and find the money along the way. And I was like, okay. So
I
yeah.
can just picture Nick in that British accent of his saying exactly that. Be like, but that is a great thing about him, is that he's such a great teacher
Mhm.
and a great helper. Like, he's one that he's been in the industry so long and he's done so many different things that, like, he can really do anything. Like, he's even acted,
Yeah, absolutely.
in projects too. So,
Yeah. He took his turn in front of the camera in Zombeez as well. So
oh, sweet.
yeah. He was like, I want a part, and I was like, okay.
I feel like he's earned that right
Yeah, absolutely,
to,
he
to
has.
have a part in the movie.
Yep, absolutely.
So, how did the idea for Zombies come about?
Um, a jar of honey. Actually, my husband works with a guy who has his own bee farm, and so we get honey from him all the time. And so he's like telling me that he was telling him about this mite infestation that almost took out all of his hives. And it's like this actual thing where these mites come and they lay eggs and they corrupt the larva, and then the grown bees that they latch onto, they kind of like control their brains like actual zombies. And they do things like fly at night and they can't fly in a straight line and all this kind of craziness. And I was like, zombie bees, that's a real thing? How is that not a movie already? Like I feel like it just kind of writes itself, almost like zombievers or whatever. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, and when you hear the title, you picture something that might be on the Sci-Fi Channel in between like
Yes.
Sharknado and like Three-Headed Shark Attack and things like that.
Yes,
So it
absolutely.
is just the name itself is such an attention grabber.
Mhm.
It's like you want to know more about it.
Right. Yeah.
Because I remember the first time I heard the name and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. Tell me more.
Yeah, and I am a huge sci-fi movie fan. I've seen all six of the Sharknado movies, all the piranhacondas and sharktopuses and six-headed shark attacks and all the things. So I was greatly inspired by all of those movies to make one of my own. So
So once you write the script, what was your next step? Like, did Nick get involved after that, or what steps did you take before you got to the actual production?
so I think the first thing I did was send it to Kevin, and he was like, "You need a producer. I'm a cinematographer," and so he was like, "Send it to Nick." And I had worked with Nick briefly on a short film called The Verso Verdict, and so I
Hmm.
sent it to him, and I honestly didn't really know him that well, and I was like, he's gonna be like, "Okay, who's this?" I kind of know her a little bit, but I didn't really think he was actually gonna read it. So yeah, like I said, I gave it to Nick. He read it and he was like, "Let's do it." And then we kind of started pre-production in November of 2020, like right after Thanksgiving. And I didn't know what to do, obviously, because I've never done it before. But he was the one who was like, "All right, this is what we need to do," and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, "Again, we have no money," but we found it. So
Well, Nick was right.
he
You
was.
find it along the way.
Yeah, so that was, yeah, he definitely, this is, him getting this ball of beeswax going. So I definitely credit him big time with it.
You mentioning 2020, that of course was during
Right.
the COVID pandemic or the height of it. Did that affect production at all? And if so, how?
Um well, we were kind of hoping it would be over by when we started filming, and it wasn't. So it did kind of put like like we kept pushing it and pushing it because we were going to try to shoot in like January, February, and then we ended up pushing it till May because we were like trying to wait for things to blow over and all that kind of stuff. And so finally we were just like, you know what, let's do it. Florida had kind of, opened back up again. We weren't like in lockdown mode like most of the, other states and stuff like that. So we had a little bit more freedom. So it did keep us from shooting earlier when we wanted to, but we were pretty vigilant about making sure everyone was tested and everything like that. So I would say it did put a little bit, but it wasn't like a major blockage. We weren't able to, because we were trying to go SAG, but because of like how much extra it was going to cost to keep up with the testing schedule, all that kind of stuff. It was going to be like an extra $15,000 just for us to pay for all of that stuff. So we were unable to do that. But we did it. We made sure everyone was tested regularly, but with the tests that we have and Walgreens with the free ones. Thank God for Walgreens and the free tests. But yeah, so I was a little worried about, how it would affect all of it, but it worked out in the end, I think. So
That needs to be on a shirt. Thank God for Walgreens.
right.
Yeah, especially during that time.
Yeah.
Uh, so I've got to ask too, because one of the more they're all essential, but one of the most essential parts of making a film is the casting.
Mm.
You got to find your characters to be able to carry out the vision that you have
Mm.
in your mind, and you've got a pretty amazing cast of characters between Teens Blackburn, Shannon Williams. Shout out to Shannon. I know he's going to be listening to this. Thomas Carter Rochester and
Yep.
several others. So, talk to me about the casting process.
So when I was writing Zombeez, I actually had teens in mind for Sheriff Taylor, the character she plays. She was like, I wrote that character specifically for teens. Um, so it was based off of her, so she probably didn't have to do too much acting because it was literally teens. Shannon was the when I was writing it, Shannon was really the only person that kept popping into my mind, even though I didn't know him that well. We had met briefly on the set of another film, but outside of being Facebook friends, I never really talked to him. But I had seen some of his stuff on Facebook, and it was just like that thing that just sticks in your head. I was like, this is the person for this role. And I just reached out to him and said, hey, I know you don't really know me that well, but would you be willing to play my dad, this, that, and the other? And he immediately said yes. And I was like, he doesn't even know me. So I sent him the script and he was like, absolutely, 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 we're doing this. Thomas, it's funny when I don't know if you remember that film festival that they had, the COVID chronic, what was it called? It was
Oh,
a
the Quarantine
yes,
Chronicles.
that he
Yeah, he
did
did the
this
toilet paper
that,
Jesus
and that
movie.
is how I found Thomas. And I said that guy right there is going to be perfect for this role. And he sent me an audition and he killed it. Um, so um, yeah. And let's see, Darrell was the leading. I did a couple of auditions with a couple of people, but I actually found him and one of the other characters through Kitty Get a Job. I had seen some of their stuff on there. So that's kind of how that came about. Like I write for a lot of people specifically, and then there's just people that you see through Facebook and social media and all that other kind of stuff. And then we did have auditions for day player roles and some of the other main characters, but um, there were just some that were just specifically tailored to certain people. So yeah, it was just
Now that you mentioned that you wrote that character specifically for teens, I'm even more interested. Yeah, because I've worked a little bit with the people you mentioned. I haven't worked with Darrell, but
mm,
I've been on set with teens with Shannon, and Thomas was in the feature,
mhm,
and all fantastic people. And I know that they gave their all for what you asked of them. So
yeah.
I that's one aspect that I'm really excited to see is all the characters come to life.
Yeah, and I will. So Teens's character and Thomas's character are my two favorite characters. Like writing them, I was cracking myself up because it was like and especially when they interact with each other, it's just like they just played so perfectly off of each other, and so I'm almost really excited just for people to see just them two on the screen together because they're our comic relief, you know. Um, so I'm pretty excited about that because they're just perfect.
Oh, absolutely. So casting is done, you get to production. How does how long did you guys shoot for? I know you said you started what in May of 2021.
Right. So we shot one scene as our proof of concept in March. We shot another scene in April. Well, we shot another scene in April, just randomly, and then we principal photography was May 10th through June 4th. So I think we had 16 days of principal photography. We had those 2 days of shooting, and then we had one pickup day. So I think it was 19 days total of shooting. Um, but I think we did like four days on, 2 days off, like that, so people didn't get wiped out. And then we took a break in between a week because there were our DP had to go back home for some things and some other stuff like that. So we shot for a week, took a week off, and then shot for another week, and then finished it up. So it was a pretty quick shoot, I think, for the most part. Yeah.
Now that's was it like really intense? Because you think of these films that take months to shoot,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that you guys shot it, even though you took little breaks. The days that you were on, were they just nonstop, go go go?
um yes and no. When we got started, we were pretty quick on the turnaround, like as far as getting from one scene to the other. I think setup took a lot longer just because we didn't have the crew to do all the gaffing and the gripping and stuff like that. So it was only like a couple of people doing it. Um, we tried not to do like 16-hour days. I think there were like 2 or 3 days where we did that because we were shooting at one location and we only had 3 days to shoot all of these scenes. So we really pushed it there. But I think for the most part we had about 12 to 14-hour days, maybe. And then but I tried to make sure that I wasn't wearing everybody out, especially because we were shooting so quickly and cheaply. um, but it was it was I won't say it was like people were just like over like overstretched or anything like that, but we turned them around pretty quick once we got going. We did lose a couple of locations just due to time, so there was a lot of script rewriting quickly to try to find other ways to work it into locations that we had coming up. So that was a fun, and I hope I never have to do that again, but I probably will. Um, but you know, so stuff like that, I think. But it wasn't like too stressful. I think maybe that was 3 years ago, so you know.
Well, I'm sure you've learned a lot, during that time of,
Yes.
what to do and, what might not be the best thing to do. And
Hmm.
that's what's great about just kind of diving in and doing it. And the fact that it was a feature and not a short, was, I think, even more impressive, because I could tell you I would never have done that, because I was overwhelmed with my first short, so I
Right.
couldn't have imagined doing a feature. So props to you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I probably jumped from like the frying pan into the fire. Like not even the frying pan, like the counter into the fire, because I'd never done any of this before. So to like try to do a CGI heavy feature film my first time out the gate, I definitely questioned myself constantly throughout the process. Like, what are you doing? Like, why? Um, but
But the only way you're going to know if it's going to work is if you actually do it.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
so no, that it. I'm glad that it all worked out, and I know you had a great crew too. I know like Brandon Purdue
Hmm.
was on sound. Was it
Yes.
Janet Longton was doing costumes?
We had Janet on costumes, Marvin Holdman on sound as well, Nick Smith, producer, and anything else that we needed. Our two DPs were from Alabama, and Carly Prevet was our first AC, and she also DP'd a couple of days for us as well. So we had a very small crew. Like I didn't have a first AD for most of the shoot. Um, I will never do that again. Uh, your first AD is so important. And the couple of days I did have a first AD, things went so much more smoothly. Um, so we had a skeleton crew. Like I don't know what is smaller than a skeleton, but that's what we had. But we made it work, and everybody did double and triple duty on everything, trying to pull it together.
And
So
that's what's great too, is when you find a crew, no matter how big or small they are, if they buy into your vision and are as into it as you are.
Mm,
And I've said this, on the show numerous times. There's no other gratifying feeling or more gratifying feeling when you see the cast and crew are just as passionate about it as you are.
mm. Yep, exactly.
So, you had, these multiple days of shooting, and I always like to ask this, especially with the local filmmakers. Were there any like funny or memorable on set moments that you can remember that you'd like to share?
Um, yeah, memorable. Well, first of all, we were shooting in the middle of May, so you can imagine how hot it was. One day we shot entirely outside, and everyone was sweating, and it was like drink water. Everyone was trying to drink water, water, stay hydrated, and it was like it was so hot, and it was like again check mark, no outside shots in the summertime in Florida. But there was this one day where Anne Marie Crouch, she came out to shoot. We only had her for a certain amount of time, but we didn't realize we were pretty off schedule. So we were in the middle of a scene, and she was like, "I gotta go," and I was like, and someone was like, "If you give us like 20 minutes," and she's like, "I can give you like 20 minutes, 45 max." We had to ditch that scene, run across the compound to the other set, and do those scenes. And we didn't even know our lines. Because I'm not gonna lie, in between doing everything, half the time I didn't even know my lines until like right before I would like practice while we were setting up. So I'm trying to memorize my lines and get ready for this scene. And while, Anne Marie is like trying to get into costume, and we're all trying to get ready and do this in like 45 minutes because it's three scenes, very dialogue heavy scenes that we have to do. And so it was something. That's all I was. We did our best. We did like two takes of everything. She did her thing, and then teens doubled for her so that we could come back and do like our close ups for Darrell and I, and everything like that. But we were like, oh, we were sweating big time. We were like, oh my gosh, we're never gonna pull this off. But we managed to do it, and it was just like everybody was just like panting at the end. And then we had to go back, change costumes again, and go back to do the rest of the scene that we stopped shooting so we could finish that one. And that was crazy. And that was our last day there. So then we spent the next like 4 hours cleaning because we had to be at I think we left at like 3 o'clock in the morning because we were shooting out of school and they had school the next day. So we were that was a crazy day. That was a crazy, crazy day. And yeah. That was something.
Yeah, and it's Steve Wise told me this a while back that filmmaking is the definition of flexibility, and that's sometimes what you got to do if somebody has a schedule change
Mm-hmm.
or some circumstance happens. You got to be able to adjust on the fly, no matter how extreme
Yeah.
that it might be. So yeah, you usually find that out the hard way, but if you pull it off, then it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't know if we were like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to have to get someone to take over her role." And I was like about to give Janet her lines, but it's like, "Janet, you got to do this." But we pulled it together barely, and I'll tell you that scene was not fun to edit because we were stumbling over lines because we didn't know them, but it was a it was very memorable. I will say that for sure.
So yeah, that's pretty wild. That we had something similar happen with on the set of my first short, where one of the actors had to leave early, so we had to just quickly go through because we were shooting the climax of the movie
Mm,
at the beginning of the day, so we had to make sure we got it right, and we didn't have a whole lot of time to do it. But sometimes that's what you got to do.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I think is cool is that you used a lot of locations to highlight different areas of the Gulf
Hmm.
Coast, everywhere between was it Fort Walton
Hmm.
Beach, Crestview, a lot of
Yep.
places. So did it just kind of happen that way, or did you have an idea that you wanted to in a way highlight the Gulf Coast?
Um, that kind of was always the goal, was to highlight the Gulf Coast, because that's really, what I'm trying to do. Though I will say that we just kind of use the locations that we were able to get, and it just kind of happened to be that much of a variety. So it did work out. So we shot at Holland Farms in Milton. We shot at Blackman Community Center in Baker, Florida, Beasley Park on Okaloosa Island, Pensacola, Crestview, all different locations. And so I'm actually really happy that, that the locations that did fall through fell through, because the other locations ended up being better and was able to encompass more of the Gulf Coast than I had originally planned. Um, so it definitely worked out.
Yeah, for sure. And that'll be something cool that, people in, Milton or Baker can, like, they can see the movie and be like, hey, this was shot here.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you go out west, especially like in Los Angeles, you're like, oh, well, somebody wants to shoot a movie here. That happens every Thursday.
Yeah.
But in as someone who grew up from that area, that does not happen in Baker
Mm-hmm.
very often. So
Right.
that's really cool to, I'm sure they were excited to have the opportunity to be like, oh, we're having a movie filmed here.
I don't, a lot of them were just kind of like, what? Because again, it doesn't happen. So they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, I guess you can. And I think they thought, like for the most part, we're just like kind of playing around and doing it as a hobby, because, you just get the side eye a lot. You want to what? And it was just like, a movie, it's not, like you said, not LA where people do it every single day. So I think a lot of people probably didn't actually realize what we were trying to do. They're just like, oh, they're just, doing a little short film, this, that, and the other. And they're just like, sure, yeah, whatever, just don't interfere with, you know. Okay. And we had a lot of people, there's not going to be like zombies walking around scaring our customers, right? And I'm like, they're not that kind of zombie, so don't worry about it, but I hope that, when they see it, if they ever do see it, that they'll, get a kick out of it or enjoy seeing their location in a film.
Well, the optimist in me likes to think so. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's one thing I've got to ask you, kind of moving to the social media aspect of things before we start to wrap this up. How did the bee puns start?
Let's just say that I've been a victim of dad jokes my whole life. So they, you know, you just hear them long enough, and then it was just kind of like, I feel like puns and that kind of cheesiness is just kind of part of the whole B movie genre. And there's just so many that come with bees, hive and beehive and oh sweet, or just whatever, be, however you can incorporate the word bee into as many words as possible. And so it got to the point where my autocorrect would kick in when I would write BE, and then it would write BEE, because I was so used to, putting B in front of everything. So it kind of just took off. And Nick has the very similar sense of humor. Like, we'll do puns back and forth all day long. So between him and I think people just kind of started latching onto it and doing it themselves. But there's quite a few in the movie as well. So,
I had a feeling there would be.
There would
but
be.
That's great though, because you've got to have something that will catch people's attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think with every post that you guys make, there's some type of, like you said, a bee pun.
Yes.
And it's still years later. It's like still, you haven't run out of them. That's pretty cool.
I mean, we have to recycle a few of them, but we do try to find more creative ways. Like, I did a Google search, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
bee puns and stuff like that. So they're not like all original. But we definitely have a big backlog of bee puns to use. And you can always just, I believe you're right, or we'll be seeing you, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of
something you could do. if you do a Blu-ray or something, you could do like a list of all the puns you guys have used as like a
Oh,
bonus feature.
that would be very extensive. Very extensive.
But impressive though
Thank
to
you.
see the amount. So yeah, as we start to wrap things up, as we mentioned at the beginning, as people will be hearing this on the 11th, so we'll be just under a week away from the premiere.
Yes.
So tell everybody where they can get tickets, where the movie's going to be showing at.
Okay, so our premiere is December 17th at Regal Santa Rosa in Mariester, not in Santa Rosa. At the Santa Rosa Mall in Mariester. It's 300 Mariester Boulevard, and it's behind the mall. It's from 5 to 8. And so from 5 to 6, we'll be having a purple carpet walk where you can take pictures in front of the step and repeat on the purple carpet and all that kind of stuff. And so the movie will actually start showing at 6 ish, hopefully. um, you can get tickets. We have a couple of links on our Facebook page, on our Instagram, on our website. It's Eventbrite, and I can send you the links or link you to that. Um,
And I'll include a link to all your guys' social media in the show notes too.
awesome. Yeah. So it'll just be at the link. You won't be able to get them at the theater, so it's only through the Eventbrite link. But we are very excited. You can dress like a bee if you want to wear a bee costume. Wear a bee costume. You can dress in your best Oscar fashion. Oscar award fashion if you want. You can wear zombie shirts. You can wear, we're not, picky about, that. Like I said, come like a bee if you want. I hope somebody does. I hope somebody dresses up like a bee. We got a lot of people wearing purple, dyeing their hair purple. So, you know, that's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I'm excited for you in the sense that you know seeing all your hard work come to life.
Mhm.
There's no other feeling like it, and getting to do it in an actual theater
Yes.
is really really cool. So yeah, really really excited for it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like I said, I think my main thing is really just people seeing it because I feel like everyone else has been waiting for this long time. Not just me, even though I have, and I'm so sick of. I tell people I've probably seen this movie 1,000 times, like because I edited it, and every time there's a new update, Steve Baker sends me updates to watch or listen to, and CGI guy sends me stuff to watch and listen to. So it's like I don't know if I can watch this one more time. I might be outside in the lobby eating popcorn while everyone else is in the theater watching the movie. But I am so excited for everybody to finally see it, and I hope they love it. I hope they have as much fun watching it as we did making it. Um, yeah, I think it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mentioned earlier that you've written 5 different projects while you've been
Sorry.
doing like post production and
Mhm.
whatnot for Zombeez.
Yes.
One of them is a Christmas project,
Yes.
and
It's.
we. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say because we are in the Christmas season, and I always like to ask my guests this around the holiday season: favorite Christmas movie of all time.
That is the easiest question anybody's asked me. A Muppet Christmas Carol is my all-time favorite Christmas movie.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that movie.
that's definitely in my top 5.
Yeah,
That's one that is like an absolute must. And if somebody tells me it's the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol, I don't argue it.
it because
It's that
it
good.
is. I think I've seen every adaptation of A Christmas Carol, even the old 1930s ones or whatever. And this one is my favorite. And every time I see it, it just gives me goosebumps. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Uh, Tell people where they can find Zombeez on online. You said you have an Instagram and a Facebook.
We have Zombeez at Zombeez the Movie, Zombeez on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a website. It's at, oh, sorry, apurplehairproduction.com. And we'll have a Zombeez page and then a page of all of our other projects that we're doing as well. Um, and we have a YouTube channel as well, Zombeez the Movie. So we have a lot of videos up there, but most everything is going to be on our Facebook and Instagram page.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. This was great.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.